Hello everybody, today we're going to talk about Are You Surprised? SBQ question, and I'm Mr. Go, and today we're going to start the show. So today we're going to talk about social study and how do I answer surprise SBQ. This is a question that quite a number of students are actually figuring this out, and not many people can figure this out. So we're going to explain over here how to answer a surprise question. It consists of two parts. Well, we're going to talk about that in a while. So, surprise SBQ is actually talking about surprise, and it's talking about shock and emotion, basically any kind of emotion that they can actually test you about. So, don't be surprised if they come out with other words other than surprise. The whole basis is that it is based on an emotion. So, let's move on. There are two ways, and we can do it through the content way, is usually the lower level, but it's a very safe level. And we basically use a source. Then after you use the source, then you cross-refer. If you didn't do the source, don't bother doing cross-reference. Then the higher level will belong to reliability, and is usually based on bias, purpose, or tone. I mean, your teacher could teach it in other ways, but that is the basic gist. So let's take a look at content. Well, we have the source. So your source, then you need to create this thing called expectation. You create your own expectation, and it's based on provenance, basically what is written over at the top of the source, your contextual knowledge, what you really know about the source, and your background information, which is found right before your source, and your reality, which is what is actually reflected in the source evidence itself. And after all, you have written your expectation in reality, then basically you need to explain how is it matching, which we will go on to that in a while. And moving on, contextual knowledge. Contextual knowledge basically deals with what you really know about the event or the activity or basically the person, such as like how much do you know about that person, like Saddam Hussein, Lee Kuan Yew, and so on and so forth. Let's take a look. We have this name U.J. Soap, and what do you really know about it? Some of you know, some of you don't. And if you do know, that will be your contextual knowledge. If you don't, then you're sort of disadvantaged because you don't know, and while you can rely on background information and the provenance to understand the whole situation. Well, if you don't know who is he is this. That's how he looks like. He's not really very handsome, but you get the gist. That is him. He's a name, and he's a Korean, South Korean to be exact. And he's a South Korean comedian and an MC. Well, his nickname is called the Grasshopper because in his early shows he liked to dress as a grasshopper. And he's a member of a very popular variety show, Running Man. If you are into Korean variety shows, you would most probably know of this because it's one of the more famous ones. So, your reality and your expectation. Let's talk about them. We are moving away from contextual knowledge because that is just an example. Expectation matches your reality, means that what you expect is actually what is happening in the source, then you are not surprised. It's very important to take note here that you are not surprised. Do not be confused. And if your expectation does not match reality, then you are most definitely surprised, and that will consist part of your explanation. So we study source E. Please don't ask me why not A, B, C, because Mr. Go likes E. So are you surprised by the source, and explain your answer. Let's take a look at the background information. We have two persons in front of you, and one of them is ex-Miss Singapore, and we have Caucasian, and his name is none other than Anton Casey. And what's so famous about him? Well, he's famous because he actually posted this on his Facebook. Video with my baby. Normal service can resume, and once I've washed the stench of public transport off me. FFS with if I'm not wrong, there's a picture of his son inside his Porsche. You can see that once he posts this, well, if you're Singaporean and he's a foreigner living in Singapore, and with that, my question to you is that if you're Singaporean living in Singapore and you have a post such as this telling me the stench of public transport that need to be washed off because he has a Porsche car, what would you infer from that? And quite a number of Singaporeans are actually angry, and they're so angry that some of them even resorted to death threats. Yes, they threatened our dear Anton Case through Facebook and other online means. And with that, they start digging out his online history and his places at work. Then basically they sent a lot of threats. And in the end, he posted something. I would like to extend a sincere apology to people of Singapore in the past 24 hours due to a security breach of my personal Facebook page. someone hacked him. And misuse of an old video by unknown sources. My family and especially my Singaporean son has suffered extreme emotional and verbal abuse online. You can see such a post is not really welcome in Singapore. You can see that there is actually quite a anti-foreigner sentiment in Singapore. Oh well, this is one of the many cases. So in this case, let's take a look at source E. We have a comment from a Singaporean business owner who employs foreign workers 21st August 2014. I think that it is normal and expected that foreigners are attracted to come and work in Singapore. I'm not against it in any way, as foreign workers have undoubtedly increased economic opportunities for Singaporeans. Nevertheless, the happiness and frustration which many Singaporeans have displayed are completely understandable. Nobody likes to have his livelihood threatened and upset, but I don't think that the solution lies in restricting the number of foreign workers coming to Singapore. They're necessary if Singapore economy is to remain successful. Singaporeans must learn to accept this as a fact of life. If you need more time to read this, feel free to pause the video, and once you're ready to go on the next one, you can continue. Okay, let's move on. So the question is, are you surprised by the source? This is the most common type of question for surprise. Simple, straightforward, with one simple word. So sample answer using content based would deal with expectation versus reality. So we deal with content. So I would have thought or expected that he would have been more supportive of his fellow Singaporean. After all, he's a Singaporean boss or Singaporean employer whose livelihood have been threatened by foreign workers. But in reality, you can take a look at a few keywords there. So he'll be supportive of fellow Singaporeans whose livelihood have been threatened. And we have source E. Source E is so open towards foreign workers. Instead of being closed off to them, supporting his own fellow Singaporeans, he's open towards foreign workers. He said, I'm not against it in any way, as foreign workers have undoubtedly increased economic opportunities for Singaporeans. That's the keywords. And after that, you have your expectation reality. This will most probably consist of your lower level content surprise answer. Think of the keywords, okay? And you need to explain it in such a way that your expectation does not meet your reality. So it does not match, and what happens is that you are surprised. That will form your lowest level. This will be your explanation. You need to explain what's your reality, okay? After you're done with this, you can move on to the next part, which is your cross-reference. Cross-reference is the same case. You need to cross-refer to the aspect. What do you mean? Let's take a look. Basically, the one in bold and the rest in gray. The bold is more important. We're talking about being open to foreign workers in Singapore, about the source. So if you find a source that support that they are being open towards foreign workers, well, you will be supporting it. If you find a source that is challenging, it means that it's closed off towards foreign workers, or they are biased against, or they hated foreign workers in Singapore, you will most probably face a case of challenging the source. So you must be very, very clear of the aspect, the point of argument which you are cross-referring to. And in this case, that will be being open to foreign workers in Singapore. So you need right sources to actually support this. If the expectation matches reality, you will be not surprised based on the other source that you have found. But if expectation does not match reality, then you will be surprised. So in French, you call it surpris. After that, you need to write the link. Since source F does not match with my expectation, F being the other source, you need to explain what's the expectation, okay? Which is not mentioned here, is in the ... format. So you need to explain that, and because of that, hence I am surprised. That is your link at the end of your cross-reference. Let's move on to the higher level, which I think that most of you will be interested in. It deals with reliability on source, so it usually deal with bias, tone, or purpose. Let's take a look. Your expectation now longer is restricted to your provenance. Is most probably on your contextual knowledge, how much you know about the person, and your background information, how much you know about this based on the background information provided beforehand. And what's happening is based on the provenance, because you need to know what is the person, what is the status. For example, is he a prime minister or is he not? So you find evidence from the source, because this will tell you the person's opinion. Is he like supportive of a certain stand? Is he supportive of the foreigners, or is he against the foreigners? And of course, you need to explain. Let's take a look at bias. Okay, I'll be doing the purpose more in detail, but bias will be just to explain so that you understand how to do it. So bias, for example, we have a very famous person in Singapore. His name is Lee Hsien Loong, and he's the current prime minister. And Usually we will talk about his bias towards, because he's the Prime Minister, usually we bias towards Singapore because he is the Prime Minister after all. But if there is a case that he's biased against Singapore, then most probably you will be surprised, because this does not match your expectation of a Prime Minister of the country. So let's move on. We have the tone. A tone basically is how the person say a certain phrase, or how a certain phrase, a certain topics in what kind of words. Is it more emotional kind of words? And you can't really hear a tone per se, because this is a written paper, but you can sense from the words used that is it a kind of emotional kind of tone that is supporting or kind of not supporting. So let's take a look. So if we have Lee Hsien Loong, he's taking a picture with the Malaysian Prime Minister Najib. In this case, if Lee Hsien Loong is sarcastic, he's a Prime Minister and he's supposed to give a speech, maybe in private context, it wouldn't be surprising, because if his personality is like that. But in the public context, when speaking to reporters, if he's supposed to be sarcastic when his usual style is not sarcastic, if you know about him, he wouldn't be sarcastic. That would be surprising, because he's not usually sarcastic during his public interview and all the public appearance. So moving on, which last but not least, we have purpose. Purpose, you need to understand the person and what purpose does he have. So let's take a look. This is source E. I'm going to recommend that you pause here if you want to read the source again, but if you don't, let's move on. But the more important part is that we're going to focus on other things. This is the provenance, which is at the top and is in bold. It's actually a Singaporean business owner. That his occupation. He's a business owner who employs foreign workers. Whether he employs local workers, that is not known, but he definitely employs foreign workers because it's mentioned here. And let's take a look. So for the expectation is that it's from a business owner who employs foreign workers to run his business. So he's of the opinion that they are important to Singapore economy, and you quote evidence. Okay, so he mentioned this in a context. Background information mentions that government restricts inflow of foreign workers in response to unhappiness of Singaporeans. And this is the background information that is given. So if you can integrate background information into your expectation, like what I mentioned earlier, this will actually help you in your expectation. So what is actually happening? So it's expect him to actually support foreign workers because they're important to Singapore economy. And in reality, he will try to convince Singaporeans about the importance of foreign workers to Singapore economy so as to ease the unhappiness, make them not as unhappy. About the inflow of foreign workers. As a business owner, what kind of motive does he have? He stands to benefit by ensuring his business has access to sufficient labor by employing foreign workers. So if phrase it like in a purpose format, and what kind of personal benefit does he benefit from this? This will actually place you at quite a high level in terms of norms, and he will be able to answer the question. And because of this, does expectation match reality? It does. And you are surprised or not? The answer is you are not surprised because it matches reality. Just to recap, there are two ways to answer this. You can do the lower level, which deals with the source itself, then you do a cross-reference. This will get you to mid-level mark. Or you can go straight to highest, which is dealing with bias, tone, or purpose, the expectation versus what is the reality that is given in the source itself. There are two ways to do this. Keep this in mind. And this will most probably help you when you think about how to answer a question. Of course, you can do all, but most probably you don't have time. So you got to pick and choose which are most salient or most easy to spot for you during examination. Yes, what we are going through here is the source and cross-reference and purpose in detail. So that's all for now, the end, and thank you very much for listening.